So welcome to this episode of Locked In. In this episode, I'm going to be doing the world's first wireless Microshift Advent 11-speed drivetrain. So if that's something you want to see, please stay tuned and subscribe if you haven't already. So full disclosure, that's not entirely true. This is going to be my initial install and first impressions of the Archer Components D1x Trail electronic shifter install. They provided these components for me to try out, and I'm going to be installing them and have already technically on my Poseidon Redwood that I've converted into a flat bar monster gravel bike. And these are going to be my initial thoughts. Apparently when I shot this, all the audio was corrupted, so none of that worked. And so I'm going to be kind of going through the process, overlaying the footage I originally shot, and then talking about the install, the initial impressions, and my first initial ride before my full review that I will be doing on this channel. So if there's something you want to learn about this review or something you want me to cover, this is why I'm making this video, so that you can watch this, comment on that, and I'll do my best to make sure that I address these comments in the full review so I do the most comprehensive review. So let's get into the initial parts and install of this kit. You're going to basically get the D1x wireless unit as well as the wireless shifter pod. Now you're going to get all of the mounting hardware, and they do have a great instruction guide, so this is by no means a tutorial. Go watch their video if you get this unit and just basically do what I did. Have it up on your phone or your laptop or your TV and just watch it and do each step one by one. It's not difficult. Essentially, you're just going to remove your current cable shifter and cable housing. They do provide you a short piece of cable housing, and all you're realistically doing is adding the provided shift cable into the unit, running that housing to your rear derailleur, and that's it. This box is basically just pulling cable the amount that you want, depending on how many speeds your rear cassette is. And if you haven't seen my gravel bike into a 90s mountain bike series, this is a stock Poseidon X Redwood Microshift Advent X 10-speed rear derailleur, but it is now an 11-speed setup because I have an 11-speed cassette on there. What I was doing when it was 10-speed is I just used the limits to minus using the 11th cog so I could make this work, because this is a 50-tooth cassette that I wanted to use, and it does actually clear on this rear derailleur. So now I have the full capacity of doing an 11-speed setup with this wireless shifter setup. So after you install the cable, you're going to use their app, pair it to this, and then you're going to basically select how many gears you have, and then each individual gear you're going to tune and basically micro adjust within the app. So this process, the only thing mechanical you have to do is set your B limit and limits on your rear derailleur, which is standard practice for any derailleur setup. But then after that, it is a little bit more time consuming because you're going through each individual gear compared to a mechanical setup where you're basically just setting your limits and then your cable tension in the middle. So after you initially do that, you're going to pair it with the shifter, and that is going to have a mounting bracket that gives you a few different options of how you want to place it, inboard or outboard, which is really convenient. Then once you pair that, you have some other options for this system. Again, I'll be going through everything in detail, more so after I use all the features in the full review, so make sure to turn notifications on so you can watch that when it comes out. After that, they say to go ride it and then fine-tune the setup. Now, first initial thoughts after the install, I did notice one thing, and I think that's just because of the style of bike that I'm running and the large tire that I have in the back here. This is a 650B by 2.4. This frame is rated to clear 2.5, but it is all externally routed as far as the rear brake cable. So with the 2.4 at max PSI and the unit here, which clears the wheel beautifully, when I try to pull it out, I do have to deflate the wheel a little bit to clear the rear brake cable and the unit itself. It is a little bit of a squeeze. So that's something that I'm assuming most people using the trail system are going to put on their mountain bikes. And I think especially with the boost spacing rear end or anything like this is going to set a lot farther away from where the tighter section of the chainstays are for a mountain bike. So I don't think that's going to be an issue. But if you are putting this on a flat bar gravel bike, keep in mind you may need to change where this position is to put it farther back on your frame. Now I can't do that because I actually set it up right in front of the small cable stop here. So I put it as far back as I could, but if I were to put it back here, obviously this cable stop wouldn't allow this unit to butt up against the bottom of the chainstay really firmly, where it might shift and move on me while riding. But besides that, it's been a super smooth install. I did an initial ride that you're watching footage of now, where I did have to fine tune the derailleur a little bit more out on the bike, which again is just something where you want to find an open space that is just kind of desolate, have your phone out, go through each gear up and down a few times and kind of fine tune until it shifts up and down into every gear very smoothly. And once it does, basically you may have to adjust it after the cable stretches slightly, but since the cable's so short, I haven't had any experience in the miles that I've put on it so far to need to rebed it or essentially retune the entire system. Besides that, I wanted to go take it out and give it an initial shakedown, and my initial thoughts, it actually shifts really, really quick. I thought with this battery operated system, which they do provide batteries and a charger for the shifter and the rear derailleur, that there might be a little bit of a lag like there is with my old SRAM 11-speed ETAP group set that I've ridden for a long time on my old build. But this actually responds pretty quickly. I was actually pleasantly surprised. The shift quality is great. Once it's tuned up, it shifts really hard and under power. And as you can see here in some of this initial footage, I wanted to take it and see if it would shift while I was jostled around on some basically like tractor hard pack tracks in this dirt area that I ride by me, and it shifted great and had no issues. So initial impressions, I am very impressed with this system. I'm going to be putting more miles on it and taking it out on some more trails to see if the unit either shifts around or does anything, but initial impressions, like I said, have been really great. So if you have any questions, please make sure to put them in the comments below, because this is a really great future-proofing option where, yes, you have to pay for the unit itself, but if you have an old 10-speed setup like I do, and you can get the gear range that you want, but you want to modernize your bike or maybe get an extra gear or two in your cassette range, you can easily just do this and swap cassettes, and you essentially just change your entire drivetrain speed without having to change your shifter and your rear derailleur potentially. So I think this is a killer upgrade, especially for Microshift, because again, this does take up to a 50-tooth cassette, no problem. I have seen people who take up to a 51 cassette even. So you could basically put this, I could even put a 12-speed rear cassette on here as well and add another gear to the gear range to really smooth that cassette out without having to buy an all-new drivetrain. So I think especially for this drivetrain specifically, I think it's a great upgrade. But so have you tried this yourself, or do you have this on your bike? Put that in the comments below as well. And lastly, make sure that you follow me on Facebook and Instagram, and you can help support Locked In so I can produce more content like this. You can pick up some Slow But Look Pro merch on my Spreadshirt, or support me on Pateron. I do monthly consults, anything cycle related for my top 2 tier levels every single month. And lastly, thanks for watching this episode of Locked In.
Let's get locked in today.